in 10 weeks, my brain changed. My experience of reality changed. I went from suffering for no reason to small levels of joy, bliss, intimately for no reason, but a lot of happiness for no reason all the time.
Well, hello and welcome back to week one of our Wellness Festival. And all this week we've been talking to amazing people about ways to press reset. We're all struggling with all kinds of challenges at the moment, as we know. But the goal of this week is to give you some tools, and everyone's different. And I'm delighted to welcome our guest for today, which is the start of a whole new series that we're calling the Conscious Accelerator Experience, which will play over the next 5 weeks. And to start us off, we have Constantine Georgiou, who is a serial entrepreneur. Feels like you've done so many things. A consciousness hacker. I'm keen to learn more about that one. And of course, the co-founder of the Conscious Accelerator. And we met, I feel like I've known you for a long time, but we've only actually met in person once, but we've had many Zoom conversations. So you're a Zoom buddy. And it was kind of weird when we first met that time in person. So how are you today, Con?
I'm fantastic, and thank you for the opportunity to bring this to life, and for your viewers to get something, especially as a result of all the chaos, if you like, or changes, rapid changes that are going on.
No, there's been so much. So maybe if we go right back and talk about one of those first things that we spoke about, being a serial entrepreneur. And when you hear those words, serial entrepreneur, that doesn't necessarily conjure up images of calmness and tranquility. And so tell me about that. How did that start? And most importantly, how did you cope with some of the challenges that serial entrepreneurs cope with?
Well, I've got my own journey as an entrepreneur, and having built and sold being acquired by a US based large competitor back in 2012. But it's a challenging role. Definitely lots of pressure, lots of moving parts, lots of chaos, lots of human challenges, lots of in-market challenges. But we had a lot of success. We wanted to build a company that was high on the consciousness level, only because we just wanted to be happy at work, right? And pursue flow, where I believe mastery can be accomplished. And we achieved that. And we were actually acquired because of that culture. So that was a real good validation point. Then, so for the last, let's say, 8 years now, I've been in venture capital, and I've had the blessings of being put in positions to hold many boot camps, to scrutinize and accelerate different startups for the purposes of being presented to investment committees. And believe it or not, I've had at least 400 of them through my bootcamp programs, and these are 12-hour boot camps. But what I noticed was, and I've tracked most of the top 30% as I would rate them, but there was always a sweet spot for this top 10%. And what I discovered was they were just more conscious, more aware, more resilient, more adaptable, had a very democratic we type approach to leadership, and we're very big on pursuing sustainability, not just success, right? Significance. And when you combine those things, they subsequently built something called the Founder Maturity Assessment to do these assessments and to assist with venture capital and capital flows. But and that kind of coincided with my own journey as well after my own exit, where I was if you believe the hype, you should be sailing off into the sunset and live happily ever after with all this money and success. But in actual fact, it was very heart-wrenching for me, because I built and sold a baby that I loved like a family, and it felt wrong. And I know to some viewers this may sound like a first world problem, but it really concerned me, because it really raised lots of questions around the whole model. So anyway, without getting too much detail, I went really deep, and for the last, well, I've been on a path of my own transformation for about 20 years, but the last 7-8 years since the exit, you know, I really dedicated more, because I recognized that putting so much effort into achieving external goals wasn't necessarily giving me persistent happiness, persistent non-symbolic experience, which is, you know, happiness for no reason all the time. I still had a lot of suffering for no reason all the time. So, you know, and I built, along with a few other people, different programs to address the whole, because founder mental health is a specific type of mental health. Founder resilience is a specific type of resilience, because really, I mean, everyone needs resilience. Everyone needs to learn how they can improve their resilience, especially with regards to the current acceleration of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity at the moment. And, you know, I'm a big Stoic believer. I believe in Stoicism. I apply Stoicism. I've even taught Stoicism in some of the boot camps that I've run in the past. And, you know, the critical element there is only worry about the things you can totally control. The rest is out of your control. And that's okay, you know, whether they fall in your favor or not, it is what it is. Like, you can't do anything about it. And worrying about it causes you more suffering. So, and really the only thing you can totally control is what's going on in between here, and what things mean. An event happens, and then you apply a meaning on it that potentially causes you suffering. Yes. But when you recognize, and you know, been through a lot, and a lot of people would probably agree, is that, you know, it's in the breakdown moments or in the suffering where greatest opportunities arise. Actually, if you look back at your life, you probably, so true. Most people, you may not want to take away some of your suffering, right? If you had the replay button, because the biggest lessons, especially in my experience, comes from that breakdown. And it was funny that my breakdown came after an exit.
When you should have been, really, you know, yeah.
That really like threw everything out. I mean, why? It makes no sense, right? But you know, and I had anxiety, I had panic attacks. You know, I do the 3 a.m. witching hour wake up call and dry reach and all that kind of stuff, and just, you know, numb out with lots of coffee, and, you know, and when you burn out rapidly when that's the case, right? And as a result, your view gets tainted by a sense of identity of lackness, right? But we're innocently just believing our thoughts. And so with my own progress, I had the benefit of, you know, understanding how to build a business and address problems that are meaningful, right? And so I was involved in launching the Founder Lab, the Founder Circle, all about building better founders. But as a result of the pandemic, in May, I was the head of venture capital at an equity crowdfunding platform, and they decided to, you know, preserve cash as you do, as everyone else did. And I was only working 2 days a week, so I saw an opportunity to run my own self-isolated retreat and test out seriously for, you know, what ended up becoming 10 weeks, using biofeedback and EEG devices like the Muse headsets. Sorry, can't really see that well. Neurostimulants like the Neorhythm, which stimulates the brain in different programs. Got myself a serious teacher, like a Lama level you know, teacher who's very, very experienced and is just an absolute blessing in my life, and various other things. And in 10 weeks, my brain changed.
Physically changed in 10 weeks.
Physically changed. My experience of reality changed. I went from suffering for no reason to small levels of joy, bliss, intimately for no reason, but a lot of happiness for no reason all the time. And I went, oh my, what? And so with that, and so there's some permanency in that as well. It's not like I need to do the, you know, 10 hours a day of meditation or certain practice. And this is not just mindfulness. I will note that. These are practices beyond just mindfulness. Mindfulness is important for concentration. great solid ground, but there are other practices that lead to, if you like, liberation. And so out of that retreat was born, because of my own personal experience, I said more people, more leaders, more entrepreneurs, more individual and youth need to be exposed to these programs, because our brain is much more plastic than we think it is. The neuroplasticity of our brain is much, much more plastic or adaptable than our muscles, in my experience. And I'm no spring chicken, right? So I was very amazed, I have to say. And so so how does this relate to resilience? Or how do, the real thing here is, how do you invest in yourself as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as an individual, as a parent, as youth, to take advantage of the baseline elements of your brain, so that, because what your brain continues to do creates a neural pathway. So if you're continuously being distracted, it'll continuously want to be distracted. If you continuously train yourself into calm, abiding peace, or spacious awareness, or inquiry into basically observing versus participating, then the brain will actually adapt, and it becomes much, much easier, so that when in the context of resilience, or you're better able to advance despite the adversity. And so there's a lot of interesting research on the neural circuitry of awakening. And when we say awakening, we're talking about the brain being lit up through gamma across many parts of the brain that neuroscience labs have never really discovered up until the last 2-3 years, actually, as a result of these specific practices that I've been taught into, and my team. There are 5 of us, and we have different experts, from scientists to wisdom practitioners to world-class leadership authors and leaders themselves, and HR and energy based leaders as well within the organization. So the 5 of us combined is an eclectic group with amazing career backgrounds and amazing experiences, but centered on accelerating consciousness to be able to build better, to be able to help people find their true nature, build neural pathways through various practices that not only do you do on the cushion, but off the cushion in life. And in the harshest environments, the most triggering environments, the workplace is one of them. And so we've built this 10-week program that we're launching at the end of about a month's time as the first cohort, and applying all these wisdom practices in the context of, in this case, work, because the first program we're launching is called Enlightened Leadership. And we've applied all these, and most of us, if not all of us, actually live out of this field of being. And so as a result, what ends up happening is 6 key parameters get addressed organically. So it's not like I have to actually piecemeal go and address individual things, but I'm actually addressing the baseline of my reality and the way I experience reality, to address a clearer vision, better composure, clearer reasoning, better health, better tenacity, and much more cohesive collaboration. So they're byproducts, by the way. They're byproducts
of the whole thing.
The key thing is that you feel joy, happiness, and sometimes a bit of bliss, if you really want it, for no reason.
Which sounds wonderful. Let me kind of stop there and just take a breath, because there's a lot of information, a lot of content there, and I'm just going to unpick that a little bit. So we talk a lot, or you talk a lot, about consciousness, and you talk about hacks of consciousness, and you talk about the 10-week experiment that you did, and to really as a starting point, and the program, which sounds amazing. And you also mentioned something which I'd love to understand more about: founder resilience. So we have a lot of founders in the audience. What do you mean by, first of all, what do you mean by consciousness, so that we're all clear what we're talking about? Mm-hmm. And what do you mean by founder resilience? Why is founder resilience different to other types of resilience? And then third question, so there's going to be three questions in the one, but the third question is around the 10 weeks that was your starting point, because you've had by most standards, an exciting life. You've built a business, you've exited the business successfully, then you've gone on different, let's call it a more spiritual journey, where you've learned more about yourself, and now you've developed tools that are really helping you to operate from a place of resilience or a place of consciousness, no matter what's happening around you. And that sounds like a wonderful thing, a wonderful skill to be able to develop, because we're all under a lot of stressful encounters every single day. So if you can develop those tools, that's going to set us all up for success and help us find balance on a daily basis. So let me go back to those three questions. What do you mean by consciousness? Let's start with a definition.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Any attachment to a thought takes you out of consciousness. Anything that causes, so if you're in the past, you're typically depressed. If you're in the future, you're typically anxious. If you're in the present, there's a good chance of, well, typically, I've found in the last 7 years, I've been running my own experiment of, can I find suffering in the present? Can't find it. So that's, to keep it really simple, that's what I mean by consciousness, is being able to actively be consciously aware on purpose in this moment. Right? Because when we have a big task list, when we have certain objectives to meet or deadlines to meet, they're in the future. But how do you actually apply? So this is where we believe we're a little bit different, in that, you can sit here and meditate and feel good, and then get off the cushion, and all of a sudden you're back in this reality distortion field of nothingness, futureness. No, but you can actually apply that by bringing, well, how do I want to feel this time next Friday? And what would I be happy with achieving that meets the original goal that I have set a vision for in my heart, right? This is beyond just making money. This is about impact. This is about, accessing flow, right? So your why needs to be really, really deep-hearted, and you need to have a real authentic connection to the problem, which fuels that, all the effort and devotion that is required. Being an entrepreneur requires devotion. A lot of people don't talk about that, but that's what it requires. It's not just a day job. It's a big deal. And yeah, so have I answered that question for you?
Yes, no, that's clear. So we're clear on what consciousness is. Founder resilience, and that probably ties in with what you were just saying, that being a founder is a lifestyle choice. It's not a job. It is a lifestyle choice. Yeah. And to be able to lead a positive life, you've got to work on yourself and have these tools available to help you, because otherwise you're just going to be a stressed wreck a lot of the time, and not being able to show up in a positive way. Ultimately, as a founder of any business, you're the leader, and you've got to create a vision and move towards that vision. So there's a huge amount of pressure. So having these tools available that can support people is very important. What about the specific things that you can do? So one of the things that you talk about a lot is hacks of consciousness hacks.
Yeah.
Some examples. What do you mean by that?
But let me go a little bit deeper about founder resilience, because I do have some data that really shows the distinction between everyday resilience and founder resilience.
Okay. So, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
The broad data, this is before COVID, right? 92% of startups fail within the first 3 years. Every minute that goes by, 3 new startups are born. in the world. So if you think you've got competition now, wait another minute. This is before COVID. And as a result of a 2015 UC Berkeley study, and there hasn't really been a lot of research into this, there has in the last couple of years, but 72% of founders self-report having some form of mental health, pre-existing mental health condition. 72.
72, that's staggering, wow.
Right? And there's the typical 5 of anxiousness, bipolar, being on the Asperger's spectrum potentially, and depression, and I can't remember what the last one was right now, but that all leads to, brownout, burnout, right? And founder suicide has been on the rise. So it's a real concern, and the reason it's unique. So firstly, the data isn't very positive, and on the other hand, the pressures associated with being a founder is very psychological as well. So there's an identity associated with being the founder of this business and this product and this UI and this app and this problem that we're solving. So when it fails, there's an identity crisis. That's the difference. Yeah. As well as all the pressures of feeding your employees, raising capital, putting lipstick on the pig to make it look perfect out there, but make it look fact, and then, being pulled from pillar to post. So it's, I can go on about that for hours, but I won't. It is very unique, and it needs to be a key pillar by venture capitalists or investors to basically say, yes, but I need to make sure that your mental health is intact. And I want to see what you're doing to maintain that, whether that's with a coach or a therapist or a program or a practice, whatever it might be. Because what I discovered is the top 10% the top 10% of the startups that I've evaluated are more conscious and I've tracked them in the last 5 years and are more successful than anyone else. So now I can see that as being a competitive advantage. Being a consciously aware leader and entrepreneur is a competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's exactly what we're about.
Got it. So you've created a way of teaching entrepreneurs to almost be ready to be a founder, effectively, because we all have an idea and we think we're a founder, but we're not ready for the pressures that involves. We haven't built that founder resilience, which takes time. Okay, that's just
one of our programs. But yeah, being able to build capacity to have and confidence to advance despite the adversity,
which is amazing. So let's get back to that point around hacks and things to do, because clearly there's a whole program, a whole level of work that needs to be done. But when you're thinking very practically, for people who are sitting there right now and are relating to what you're saying and recognizing that they don't have the founder resilience developed to the level it needs to, and maybe feeling some anxiety or some negative emotions, what would you advise? Like, what are things that people can do to start to build that founder resilience and build their level of consciousness so that they can move into that top 10%?
Like, I'm a firm believer in having emergency help buttons, or I call them emergency glimpses.
I like that.
When upset happens as it arises, like you don't expect it, and then it happens, and someone resigns, or a customer doesn't accept your proposal, or the tax man knocks on your door and you got $100,000 bill that you didn't plan for because someone made a mistake somewhere. All those things. Is that in the moment, that's where the biggest opportunity arises. One of my guides says, in her book, basically said, make suffering your ally. Right now, I'll explain why that would be. But the simple hack right now as an emergency glimpse would be to become aware of awareness. So do a U-turn. And the way to do that, and some people go, oh, how do you do that? It's really simple. If you give yourself 15 minutes to 30 minutes, 30 minutes is ideal, sit in a room with a nice view, fixed view, a little bit wide angled, not too focused, because that triggers the amygdala, and it's sort of basically going, should I run? Should I fight? Should I freeze? And taking a beautiful like landscape, if you like, even on your screen, and simply report the following. Awareness is, and just fill in the blank. And as you keep doing, at the beginning, you may want to just like hazard a guess, but slowly, before you know it, awareness starts to turn into back on itself, onto awareness, and discursive thought, triggered thought, judgment drops to a point where you get into a blissful state. That's a little
That's
hack.
good.
And the more you do that, then when you're in the middle, you build a memory bank of, yeah, actually this works. Okay. So then when something does happen, right, in the midst of it, right, 1 minute hack. A 1 minute hack would be just to do the same thing and go and just remember to remember.
You've got that, yeah. Which is
awareness is. And before you know it, you're not taken by the thought, the trigger, the memory, the projection, the past, all that stuff.
It's like a crisis management. I like this emergency
crisis management.
Yeah,
nice.
Dealing with
crisis management glimpse. Thank you.
Crisis management glimpse. It's because that's the moments when things can go horribly wrong. You know, we get a disappointment, we get a rejection.
Well, here's the thing, and some people may say, but why? I mean, why do I want to do that? And I'll tell you why. Because when you are in that moment, and it happens when you're in a boardroom, or it happens when you're in front of your employees, what you do next.
Absolutely. It's keeping.
You know what I'm going to say. Right. If you lose your composure, if you lose your ability, do I really need to go into the neuroscience of this? Like, the brain constricts, and it pulls all the blood, all the energy away from extremities, and you lock up. So you're unable to reason effectively. You're unable to have composure, and you're not going to be collaborating effectively, because you're going to get into blame, or react poorly. And it doesn't take much for a leader, or an entrepreneur, or a leader, or an individual or even family person, parent, to act poorly and lose the respect, the trust, the faith of their followers, employees, family, right? So there's this little quote that I have that I like to use, is like, when we can build humans when we can help develop humans to find their true nature, which is a whole other conversation, and when these upsets happen, they crack a little smile and say, ooh, breakthrough coming. That's when we know we're there, right? And that's because they'll go, oh, because then you're recontextualizing the suffering, the setback, and you're going, oh wow, well, it's something that we need to improve, that we can improve. It's an opportunity. And I know from I'm getting goosebumps just sharing this, by the way. All of my past suffering, when I have applied some of these practices, I actually saw the opportunity to rise, and it improves the resilience of the business then, because suffering becomes your ally.
I love this. And you realize, like, hearing you speak, it's really like you are this whole person with all these different aspects of life. And if you can build, then it's like the foundation, this founder resilience, this consciousness, like your strong foundation. So whatever situation you find yourself in, you acknowledge that there are going to be these crisis moments, and they're going to come along, and how you react is your choice, and that's easy to say, but having the tools that allow you to build up that muscle memory, and we've had these conversations before, but it's that muscle memory that allows you to react in a way which saves the day and demonstrates real leadership, which is
or minimizes damage.
Minimizes damage, yeah, for sure. I'm conscious of time, and in terms of wrap up, I feel like I could talk to you for a lot longer, and I think we're going to have to do a part 2, because I feel we've just started the conversation and started to scratch.
It's a deep topic.
It's a huge topic. But what would you say to someone who's out there in terms of starting? So you started, and it wasn't the beginning, but the 10-week experiment that you did, where you were bringing together biofeedback and other practices, and that really helped you understand the physical changes in your brain, and has clearly motivated you to make huge changes to develop this whole program now to really help others build those hacks into their own lives. What would the very first step be if someone's sitting there feeling like super overwhelmed, stressed, in a business? Relates to what you're saying about the business being part of I certainly relate to that. You know, if you create something and put it out into the world, then it is an expression of who you are. And if someone rejects that, then they reject you, but they don't. But you can easily take it like that. But one word of advice to someone who is on the more stressful side of the equilibrium framework.
Well, I mean, obviously, check out our website and see if you can make it into the first cohort. It's a limited group for the first one.
What is the website? So we've got
the consciousaccelerator.com.
Okay.
Or you know, if there's, you know, if you're challenged, if it's desperate, feel free to reach out to myself and my team through the website. There's a inquiry page there. But obviously, you know, I don't want to, you know, if there's a history of this, obviously go to the relevant professionals and service providers who are experts in these to be able to, at a clinical level, to try and address the challenges. Because, you know, this is a developmental model. Having said that, and we do have a weekly refuge in the midst for the festival, where people can get direct experience, literally in 1 hour, of presenting something that's causing them lots of stress, and we kind of rate it and get to familiarize ourselves with the event, right? We rate the event, and then basically we do a 15 to 20 minute practice of shifting consciousness through certain practices, and then coming back to the same problem, the challenge, the setback, or the event, and noticing how your experience of the event changes dramatically.
I can't wait for that. That sounds really exciting.
Dramatically. Yeah. And that just speaks volumes to what Einstein said many years ago. A lot of people still, you know, think that he's the gold standard, that we can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. And that is a direct first-person experience of exactly what he was pointing to.
I love that. I think on that note, let's wrap up. Thank you, Constantine. I really appreciate everything you've done. Let me acknowledge you for the work you've done. Your personal journey is inspiring for everybody, and the work that you're continuing to do now to teach people how to build their own level of consciousness is highly valuable. So thank you for spending time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.